The killing is ongoing. The starvation is ongoing. And look, I do hope that a dam is bursting. You mentioned the genocide word. Shmuel Lederman, who is an Israeli researcher of genocide, spent much of 2024 saying it's not a genocide, it's not a genocide. He was interviewed by a Dutch newspaper last week. He said, I've changed my position. It is a genocide. He said, in my field, there's a consensus among genocide scholars that it's a genocide. In fact, that Dutch newspaper interviewed 7 leading scholars of genocide. Every single one said, we think what's happening in Gaza is a genocide. In fact, this week, Piers, you have an Israeli former general, Yair Golan, saying a sane country does not attack civilians, does not kill babies as a hobby, and does not expel civilian populations. That is Yair Golan, the former deputy chief of the Israeli military.
And see the tall streak of weasel's piss on the right-hand side? Shaking his head, shaking his head. It's like, and as you would expect, I'm not showing much of him, but at no stage during any of this interview does he rebut anything Mehdi said. He comes out with his own IDF points, but he doesn't rebut anything that Mehdi says.
Because he can't.
Prominent Israeli politician. He was a hero on October the 7th, fought Hamas himself on October the 7th. This is what he said this week.
Okay, John Spencer, you've been kind of pulling a lot of faces there. You obviously don't agree. But you know, given that so many...
How? Sorry. How can you disagree that the majority of genocide scholars say something when the majority of genocide scholars say something? The only way you can disagree is actually the majority of genocide scholars don't say that, and they do. So what's the disagreement?
Many allies of Israel are now raising massive alarm bells.
So this is something else Pierce is going through, and he did it in this conversation. He now talks about all the countries, like the UKs, all the countries that are now basically telling Israel too much now as well. So you could also say that maybe...
Like Winston. Winston was the tipping point.
Maybe Piers is being a little bit cowardly. He's following along with kind of other world leaders, but it seems to be a movement. And very shortly, if it's not there already, all that there's going to be is Israel and the US and no one else supporting Israel in the actions they're taking in this particular context.
What is happening? You can't be comfortable, surely, with what is going on in Gaza, are you?
Absolutely not. I think it's horrible. I think there are people suffering. I just am not misinformed on who is the cause of that suffering, that it isn't Israel, that war isn't a crime. War should be avoided at all costs.
Well, war isn't a crime.
Hell,
unless it's a war crime. War is not a crime unless it's a war crime. Wars can be criminal. And this is it. And what you're going to hear him say is going, well, I just know who's the ones to blame. Again, no rebuttal.
And Israel did that. And this war didn't start 75 years ago. This war started on October 7th when Hamas invaded Israel and tried to destroy and actually did genocidal acts. I agree that there's a lot of suffering happening in Gaza, and it's the list of people who are responsible.
Well, you're not aware, Chewie. This guy's an expert in war. That's what he does. He's an expert. So he's an expert in war.
Israel's not on it in my list. Hamas is on it, and I actually have solutions.
Sorry, I cut that off. We should probably hear what he just says then about where he lays the blame.
I agree that there's a lot of suffering happening in Gaza, and it's the list of people who are responsible. Israel's not on it in my list. Hamas is on it, and I actually have solutions.
So the list of responsibility does not include Israel. So nothing that Israel's done, they have no responsibility. None whatsoever. Just to remind you, when we've talked to people from the alternative Jewish voices, Marilyn Garson, one of the points she pointed out, which sticks with me, is that Gaza the Palestinians have no ground defense, ground to air defense. So the Israeli helicopters and fighter jets just literally come and hover, fly around, come as low as they want to, pick a target, boom. That's the quote unquote, I'm getting as close to the camera as I can, war we're talking about. That's the war we're talking about. But according to this guy, Israel, they've got no complicity. They've got no fault, Israel. Nothing to do with them.
You asked Mehdi for a solution. I have solutions based on the history of war. Number one solution is to encourage Egypt to open the gate that they control.
There's that whole history of war.
No, I'm a student of war history. Okay, so there was absolutely no need to fight the Nazis. Just people needed to open their borders so the populations of the countries that the Nazis wanted could move on to a new country. That would stop war. Why we've never done that?
But remember as well, Chewie, in the history of war, there was this thing called Nuremberg that held some people accountable for their actions. That's also a part of the history of war. When an international court finds you guilty of war crimes, that's also a part of the history of war, which could also be laid at the feet of this conflict. Certainly one side, one particular politician within this conflict.
What's also key here is what he said there. Like, Egypt should open its borders and take the Palestinians. Displacing a people, a whole people, to another country is literally a genocide. So there you go. His answer is the key to finishing this war is completing the genocide. Thank you.
So his answer is
you look like a Q-tip.
They are not committing a genocide, and the solution to this is allowing
more
us to
genocide.
commit a genocide. Okay, we get to
More genocide.
The solution is to encourage Egypt to open the gate that they control and create a humanitarian zone. Let every woman, child, and elderly person out of Gaza, just like you and I have discussed in the past about Ukraine. 5 million women, children, elderly left Ukraine to escape Russia's evil bombardments. That could be done today. And
hey, Chewie, he doesn't realize that Israel's Russia in the example he's just given. Because it's Russia.
Yes.
It's Russia.
Yes.
It's Russia bombarding Ukraine that the Ukrainians having to run from. It's Israel bombarding Gaza that he's talking about, then Gaza can run. So he's not aware. He's basically saying we in this argument are Russia. He hasn't picked up on that in his little pointy head.